Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Harlan. Today we are going to be going over the SOL 6.5A warm-up and the SOL 6.6A and C warm-up. SOL 6.5A covers multiplication and division of fractions, and SOL 6.6A and C cover integer operations and the order of operations. So question number 1 says Olivia's mom is making cupcakes for her birthday. She makes 48 cupcakes and plans to bring 3/4 of the cupcakes to school. How many cupcakes will be left at home? So I think the keywords here are left and of. Remember that of is a mathematical word for multiplication, and left often means subtraction. So it said that we're going to leave 3/4, or we're going to take 3/4 of the cupcakes to school. And there are 48 of those cupcakes. So we need to do 3/4 of, which means times, 48. When we are multiplying and dividing fractions, the first thing we do is we do BLT. We don't need to do that here, but we do need to turn the 48 into a fraction by putting some pants on him or putting it over 1. Now we multiply across. Now I don't know what 48 times 3 is, so I'm going to go over to the side and put 48 times 3. 3 times 8 is 24, carry the 2, and 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 144. 4 times 1 is 4. Now we can simplify this fraction by turning it back into a mixed number using division. Remember that our top dog, our numerator, goes in the house, and our denominator goes outside. 4 cannot go into 1. 4 can go into 14 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. 14 minus 12 is 2. Bring down the 4. 4 can go into 24 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. And we're left with no remainder. So 36 are going to school of these cupcakes. So we want to know how many stay home. We started with 48. And we use the word left. So we're going to take away those 36 cupcakes, and we are left with 12. So 12 cupcakes stay home, and that is our final answer. Number 2, Keith's mom allows him to watch 8 hours of TV per week. If he watched 2 3/5 hours on Monday and 1.5 hours on Wednesday, how many more hours of TV can he watch? So he starts with his 8 hours. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And every time he watches TV, so like 2 and maybe 3/4 of an hour and 1 and maybe half of an hour, we want to know how much TV time he has left. So we need to subtract. We're going to do 8 minus 2 3/4. And whatever answer we get, we're going to take away 1.5. And let's do 8 minus 2 3/5. We always subtract our fractions first. But if we look here, I don't have a fraction here to subtract. So I have to borrow from the 8. So I now have 7 wholes. And basically I took this 8th whole and I'm going to turn it into a fraction. Well, if the other fraction is in fifths, we want this fraction to be in fifths. So we still have our 7, 1, 2, or we still have our 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But instead of calling it 8, I'm going to call it 7 5/5. Now we can subtract. 5/5 minus 3/5 is 2/5. And 7 minus 2 is 5. So that's how much TV time he has left after Monday. Now we have to know how much he has left after Wednesday. So we have to take that 5 2/5 and subtract 1 1/2. Now those two fractions do not have the same denominator, so we need to find a common denominator and then make the equivalent fraction. So I like to make my bar graph or my bar charts, and I put 2/5 and 1/2. And first I'm going to just count by twos. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Then count by fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. On the bottom I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I look at the denominators first, so that's down here, and I find what is the smallest number in common, and it's 10. So I know that my equivalent fractions are 4/10 and 5/10. Now I can't do 4/10 minus 5/10. I wouldn't have if I am holding 4/10 in my hand, I don't have 5/10 to take away. So again, I need to borrow from my 5. And just like before, let me make some room. Just like before, I'm still going to have 5 whole, but instead of calling it 5 whole, I'm going to call it 4 and 10/10. So it's still 5 wholes, but I'm going to turn one of them into 10/10. And I'm going to add that 10/10 here, and I end up with 14/10. Now I can subtract. 14/10 minus 5/10 is 9/10, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So that's how much TV time he has left after Wednesday, and that is the answer to our question. Number 3, Alex needs to practice piano 5 hours a week. If he practiced 1 1/8 hours on Tuesday and 1 3/4 hours on Thursday, how much longer does he need to practice? Well, this is a very similar setup to our last question. We start with 5. We're going to take away the 1/8, then we're going to take away the 1 3/4, and we want to know how many we have left. So let's start with 5 minus 1 1/8. Just like before, I don't have a fraction here to subtract, so I need to borrow from the 5. So instead of calling it 5, I still have 5 wholes, but I'm going to call it 4 and 8/8. Same amount, just a different name. 8/8 minus 1/8 is 7/8, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So that's how many more hours he needs to practice after Tuesday. So now let's look at, now we need to take away 1 3/4. These do not have a common denominator, so I need to make my bar charts. So we're going to count by 7s just a few times. 7, 14, 21, 28. Let's count by 8s. 8, 16, 24, 32. Count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12. And by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16. Looking at the denominators, I want to find the smallest number in common. And it looks like it's 8. So our two fractions are 7/8 and 6/8. 7/8 minus 6/8 is 1/8. And 3 minus 1 is 2. So our final answer is 2 1/8 hours. Let's move on to the other warm-up. Which equation is modeled below? Well, this is multiplication. And we know that we're going to end up at negative 18. Unfortunately, all of our answer choices are there, so that doesn't help us. The next thing I tell students to do with these problems is say, which of these actually gives you negative 18? Remember that a negative times a positive is going to give us a negative answer. So here I have negative positive, so that could work. Negative positives, that could work. Negative times negative is positive, so that's not going to work. And a positive times a positive, well, that's not going to work. So now we've already eliminated some of our answer choices. Looking here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 groups. And each group is negative 3 large. So 6 groups of negative 3. 6 groups of negative 3 makes negative 18. 6 times negative 3 makes negative 18. So that makes B the correct answer. Let's talk about some of our integer operation rules before we continue. Remember, with addition and subtraction, same signs add, different signs subtract. And if it is a subtraction problem, we have to do keep, change, then move up to these rules. For multiplication and division, it's the same thing. Same signs give a positive answer. Different signs give a negative answer. So let's start here. 4 times 4 is 16. But positive and negative are different signs, so we get a negative answer. 28 divided by 4 is 7. But negative and negative are the same signs, so it's a positive answer. 55 plus negative 10. Positive and negative are different signs, so we subtract. 45 minus 10 is 45. Team positive has more points than team negative, so it's a positive answer. Here we have subtraction, so I need to do keep, change. I keep 3 positive, change the subtraction to addition, and this is positive 25, so I change it to negative 25. Now I use our rules. Positive 3 and negative 25 are different signs, so I subtract. 25 minus 3 is 22. Team negative has more points than team positive, so it is a negative answer. Negative 30 divided by 15. Well, 30 divided by 15 is 2. They are different signs, so that is a negative answer. Finally, let's go over this order of operations problem for the day. Remember that our order of operations goes parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication, division, left to right, and addition, subtraction, left to right. We do have parentheses in this problem, but there are no additional operations happening inside of them, so we skip it. We do not have any exponents. So we're going to multiply and divide left to right. We start with negative 28 divided by 7. 28 divided by 7 is 4. And since it is a positive and a negative, different signs, it's a negative answer. Bring everything else down. A number outside of a parentheses represents multiplication. 5 times 2 is 10. But since the signs are different, positive and negative, it's negative 10. Bring everything down. Now we add these two values together. They are the same sign, so we add. 4 plus 10 is 14. They're both negative, so our answer is negative. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or you can email me.